Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, we have Joseph and Jasmine Mims, and they are the owners of Abundant Culture, which is a private equity investment company that buys, funds, and grows small businesses. Welcome to the program today.
Thank you so much, Frank, for having us on.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
No, this is great. Now, just to let our listeners know, you guys are in Northwest Indiana, southeastern Chicago, really. I mean, it's all the Chicago area.
Right in that area.
Yeah. Unless you're ashamed of Chicago, it's the Chicago area.
Sometimes I am ashamed of Chicago.
Yeah, I hear you. Depends who the quarterback is, right? Well, before we hit record, we were kind of joking about it, but it's, nobody goes to high school and says, hey, I want to have a private equity company. Jazz, Absolutely. What do you think? Let's start a private equity company. That's just not a conversation that's had.
Not at all.
And yet you do. So I guess share the story. How did this all come about?
Absolutely. So the way our story kind of unfolded, it's funny because it's been something that's been in the works our entire life, but we didn't know it. Most of the events in our life kind of led up to us wanting to do this. And really the first part of it is, both of us grew up and our families struggled financially through a lot of our childhood. So there was always this financial pressure of, wanting to do better financially, basically. And everybody, when we were younger, were telling us that, the way that you solve that problem is you get an education. Well, the paradox of it is that you need money to get an education, and you need an education to get money. And if you don't have money, how do you get the education to get more money? Yeah. So that's the situation we were in. So in order to solve that, we ended up both joining the Army Reserves to pay for school. And we didn't know each other in high school at all, but we were kind of making similar decisions. We both ended up joining the Army Reserves
because they said that we weren't going to get deployed, and it was only one weekend a month.
Yeah. Okay. So we wanted the benefits. And I hate to say it, but it's the truth. We wanted the benefits of the military while doing the least amount of work that possible for the military. That ended up not happening at all, because right after about 3 to 5 months of basic training and what's called AIT, which is basically the job training for the Army, we ended up getting deployed to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, after only about 30 days of being home. So when we got to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, that's where me and Jasmine actually met. And then we started dating, soon after. And
but Guantanamo Bay is not. I mean, it's not. I get it. It's not L.A.
It's not a war zone or anything,
right?
Like that. Yeah. So it's to kind of shed a little light. It's weird.
They were like prison guards there, but they're not prisoners; they're detainees. So
right.
They're like detainee guards.
Yeah, and honestly, it wasn't a physically hard job at all, but it was just mentally draining because you were away from home. They didn't have cell towers there when we were there, so it was really hard to call home. And the leadership wasn't all that great either, but that's a podcast probably for another day.
Sure.
So it was mentally stressful. But when it came time to come home from that, we were really excited because we felt like, since we have a deployment under our belts, now it should be really easy to find work, and it should be really easy to start going to school to solve this financial issue that we've been growing up with this whole time. But when we got home, what we actually found is that it was probably harder to find work than it was when we left. So we spent several months unemployed, and we both ended up going to school, but our benefits package didn't work out the way that we were told or the way that we thought. So she went to school, ended up finishing. I, in my second semester, was like, I can't do this for like 4 years. And it's not that it was hard. It just wasn't what I was looking for. I ended up dropping out. And then I remember on our way to her school one day, we saw this homeless person, and it was a homeless veteran. And I thought to myself, like, oh, well, I don't have PTSD or, anything like that. And if I keep going down this road that I'm going down, I'm going to end up exactly like that guy, or I could, because we had saved a lot of money, but you can save as much money as you want. If you don't have any income, the savings is going to drain eventually. So I was in a situation where I realized that I had been chasing financial stability this whole time, but I didn't know anything about finances. So I just began to study it. I started off with just reading books. I think the first financial book I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
That led to other books, and that led to courses, and then those courses led to different mentors. And I started off in real estate investing, just because through everything I studied, I thought it would be something I could be pretty successful at. That turned out not to be the case, but sometimes the one breadcrumb leads to the next one, which is what you're actually supposed to do. And in going through this process of helping raise capital for real estate syndications and things of that nature, I realized that I like the business behind real estate. But if you ask me about a building, I was like, I don't know anything about the bricks, the wood, the mortar, or anything like that.
Right.
So we actually got a chance one day to own a coffee shop franchise while we were looking to do real estate. But then we look at the financials of the franchise, and then we compared them to the stuff we saw in real estate, and we were like, wait a minute, well, we want real estate because we want cash flow, but this coffee shop cash flows more than all the real estate deals we looked at. So why don't we, just buy this business? And that was our first opportunity really getting into business. We ended up buying an existing location and starting another location outside of that. And then in buying that business, we were like, okay, I kind of like this. We could do this, and this differently. So we started to just make tweaks to that process. And also got a mentor who actually did that. One of my mentors, he's on over 24 companies over his lifetime. And then I realized in doing this research that there's companies called private equity companies, private equity firms that are in the business of buying other small businesses, growing them, and then eventually selling them for a profit, or, even buying out the investors who, help fund it. So when we realized that, at first it was just, well, let's just buy businesses. That's what it started out as. But
Mm-hmm.
then as we come to learn more about the space, it started to become, well, why can't we start a private equity firm, or why can't we start a private equity fund? So after doing that, that's actually what we decided to do. So that pretty much brings us where we are today, where our main focus is buying companies. But in the very, very near future, actually, by the time this podcast episode comes out, we're also going to be offering funding for different small businesses that meet our criteria as well.
Wow, fascinating story. I think that's what I love about podcasting more than anything is you kind of get people's whole story.
Mhm.
And truly everyone has a journey.
Yeah.
Everyone has a journey. Obviously, there's relationships along the way. You mentioned a mentor. Somebody, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the military. And I don't, I never want to be so strong. It's so, okay, somebody lied or they maybe didn't understand or whatever. And maybe it was a step back, but it's just neat how your life has kind of fit together and it's been other people. I know you know it now that relationships are important, but at what point were you guys like, okay, wait a minute here, it's not what you know, it's who you know, kind of a thing?
Yeah.
I think that moment is probably when, so one of the signs that the homeless veterans were holding, it's near UIC. They'll take down like signs that people like write on and stuff, and then they'll write on it for money or food or whatever. And one of the signs that they were holding, it was like, make 10K a month with real estate investing. So Joe actually called that number that was on the sign because we saw it like so many times. Every time he dropped me off at school, we saw the sign, and he was like, why haven't you ever called it? I was like, I don't know, it seems like it's too good to be true or something. So he called it, and that was our very first mentor. And that mentor, he was a real estate investor in Chicago, and he did like a lot of wholesaling. And he brought us into a community of real estate investors. So within the community is where we found another mentor and a really good friend of ours now that helped us learn how to raise capital, because we didn't even know that was possible. So like at that moment, like it was probably the same night that we went to like their intro event is when we were like, yeah, we need to be a part of a community. Like we need more people to help us.
Yeah,
and ever since then, we've kind of just leaned on others like expertise and knowledge and wisdom. And we use that as leverage all the time.
Yeah, I have a friend locally who was trying to get out of a lease, and I used to be an attorney. And somehow or another, she found out about and called me, and hey, what do I need to do? Which was fine. I'm happy to, I'm happy to share with her my insights. To me, what she needed to do was real simple. What she needed to do, she was ready to write off her security deposit. I'm like, no, Jackie, that's your money. The law says that's your money. And if they don't give it back to you in 30 days in Ohio, you get triple back. Right. I mean, it's, this is what, and I, at that moment, I'm like, the difference between the haves and the have-nots in this world, I'm not talking about the super, super rich, right? I'm just talking about the people who are doing decent and the people who are, holding the sign. Is a little bit of information. It's just a little bit of information. And
Totally agree.
Yeah. And I just, at that point, I'm like, okay, do this, get your security deposit back. But you need to call this other person, who's kind of the financial coach, because that's not really, I don't have the patience for it. It's not really what I do. And this other person does that, and let her make money. But it was just kind of a cascade of things, because from there, just a couple of questions, she realized that she had worked for the state, or in talking to this other person, realized she had worked for the state for like 10 years, and walked away leaving pension monies. Nobody told her. She didn't know what to ask, and it wasn't $100,000, it may have been $20,000, but $20,000 when you really have nothing in the bank is, it's big. Yeah, it's significant. And she, oh, Frank, you saved my life. I didn't save your life. I introduced you to somebody who asked the right questions that helped you. Because eventually I think that money finds people. But again, that's the value of just having people in our lives. We think of networking so often as, okay, hey, here's the person that's, rich Uncle Buck who's going to just make all my problems go away. And that's never the case, but it's just that little bit of information. Or, hey, here's this franchise. Was it a coffee franchise? I think you said, right?
Yeah, it's a coffee shop franchise.
Yeah. Here's a coffee shop franchise. I'm not interested in it. It might be something you guys are interested in. And sure enough, and just kind of one thing's parlayed to the next, to the next. What'd you guys want to do when you were growing up? Do you go to the same high school?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
So it's totally insane that like we were making so many decisions that were similar up until the point where we met on the deployment. but we knew nothing of each other. We actually
were
went to
about like
basic.
30 minutes away,
Yeah.
like driving distance. Like he
Yeah.
was
Okay.
in Gary, Indiana, and I was in the south suburbs of Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were I think we went to basic training around the same time too. And I think her barracks was right next to mine, but I had never seen her.
Never saw each other.
Okay.
So when I was growing up, I wanted to be a bunch of things, honestly. Like the first thing I ever wanted to be was a paleontologist, somebody who studies
Okay.
fossils and dinosaurs and stuff like that. I was really into a lot of different types of engineering and science, because no matter how much I bombed my other grades in school, or no matter how much I did not study, I was pretty much guaranteed to get at least at bare minimum a B or A in every single science class or anything related to science. I wanted to be a forensic scientist at one point in time. So nothing actually, I've never wanted to be anything remotely related to finance until I realized the impact that you can make with capital. A lot of people say that money is the root of all evil, and I believe money is just a tool at the end of the day. And if it's in the hands of an evil person, it's going to do bad stuff. But if it's in the hands of good people, it would do good things. And I remember, one of the pivotal moments for me was when, I wasn't doing very well financially. And I actually wasn't having a good day at all. But this one person, I think they were asking for money on the street. They were homeless. And I ended up just giving them whatever I had in my wallet. It wasn't much. It was not quite $20, but somewhere near 20-ish, $20-ish dollars. And that person, I can't remember exactly what they said, but they were really encouraging to me. And I remember that I thought I was helping them out by giving them money, but in turn, he actually ended up telling me things that actually brightened my day. So what I found is that if I can, and I don't think, helping people is just with money. I just think that's one of the ways. But what I realized that day is that if I can gather enough capital and do enough good things with it, that it'll actually have, I would actually argue to say it will have a better return in my life than the money that I actually, put out or allocated to whatever causes that I wanted to allocate it to. So when I had that epiphany, that's when I realized that finance was big, outside of just, growing up always not, having the money or the finances that my family needed.
Yeah. Jazz, how about you?
When I was like very little, I wanted to be a singer. Wasn't any good, but I like to sing. So I'm happy that I didn't try to continue down that path. But then after that, I believe I wanted to be an attorney, just because it seemed cool. And then I was like, no, they read too much. So how about a psychologist? And then in high school, I was in cheerleading. And I had a really hard time with like tumbling, like the backflips and stuff, just because I had like these huge mental blocks that for whatever reason I couldn't overcome. So then that kind of made me want to become a sports psychologist. So that's what my bachelor's degree was. It was in psychology. I started a kinesiology minor, but after I took anatomy class, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then like right at the end of I believe it was like maybe the last semester of my bachelor's degree or college experience is when we joined that real estate community and started getting more involved in business. And I was like, you know what? I don't even want to do that anymore. I just want to do something with real estate and business. And then the path kind of just kept leading itself.
Yeah. Well, but I think all things are connected. I think the psychology end of it really has applications in business. I mean, it's, you
Yeah.
know, if you stop and look at things, it's all connected, and all learning is connected. And,
Yeah.
you know, the science classes, Joe, I mean, they weren't a waste, you know, it's just, they aren't directly applicable, right? But just kind of the learning and the thought process is
Yeah,
all, you know, it all's kind of, you know, melded together.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you guys like to do for fun, or, you know, spare time, when you're having a bad day, types of things?
We are really into movies.
Yeah.
We binge watch a lot of movies and TV shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which ones do you like?
So there's a lot of them. One of them, and it's weird because a lot of them kind of paused because the whole COVID thing happened.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucked. But one of my favorite shows, it well actually the one that ended was Green Arrow. It's something that we used to watch in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba all the time. And I
Yeah.
thought it was kind of a cool show.
Mhm.
One that we would definitely watch as soon as they start the season back up is Billions, with basically about this hedge fund guy who he does things the right way 99% of the time, but that 1% of the time he's kind of shady, and there's this other guy that kind of wants to take him down. Um, I would say that's one of my favorite shows because
Mhm.
even though I'm not a hedge fund manager, I understand funds probably a lot more than the average person does. So it's a really cool show to watch.
Pretty
But
much anything like superheroes, like the whole Marvel universe,
yeah,
Avengers movies,
Oh, I
like
love you
that's
guys. I love you. I
yes.
love you. I love you. We could devote 10 episodes to having a conversation about this. I
absolutely.
literally got in the car when the end game came out and drove 90 minutes to meet my son, who drove 90 minutes to watch Endgame together, and then
I
got in the
don't
car
blame
and
you.
drove.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next day met my daughter to watch it again. Yeah, I'm totally with
Saw
you.
it twice
Yeah, we saw it
at the
twice in
movies.
at the movies.
Um, at any rate, let's shift gears. Let's talk. Let's talk about abundant culture. People are listening. How could people help you in the business? What types of things?
Yeah,
Clients.
yeah. So basically, um, my abundant culture is always looking for mainly one type of small business owner. Any small business owner who has, we call it the rule of five. If they have between 500,000 and 5 million in annual sales, and if they have 5 or more employees, we want to basically either help them if they're looking to sell their company and maybe retire.
Hmm.
Um, we're looking to buy it if it fits that criteria. Also, if they're not necessarily looking to sell right now, but maybe they're looking for growth capital, they're looking for funding, we would also help them provide that to their company. And also, if they're somebody who has a company within those parameters that I just talked about,
Hmm.
if they're not necessarily looking to sell, they're not necessarily looking for funding, but they're looking to maybe, grow their passive cash flow or grow their wealth in general, and they want to invest. We also will be actually, can I say that? Because the fund isn't even, I don't know. It's
Well,
weird.
by the
So yeah,
time
by
the
the time
episode
by the
airs.
time the episode comes out, the documents will be set up so that we can actually, if somebody wanted to invest in our fund and they're considered what's called an accredited investor, they can actually invest in our fund. And the thing that's really cool about that is that they'll be investing in other small businesses that are kind of like their own. So it's not just like putting your money into some type of financial instrument that you don't understand. It's actually a physical location. It employs people. It has a product or service that you yourself can actually utilize as well. So basically, just what we're mainly looking for is small business owners who fit that criteria to either help us out and either letting us buy their company, get funding from us, or invest with us.
Okay, sounds great. Best way to get a hold of you through your website?
Yep.
Uh,
So our website is abundantculture.co, not .com. We'll also probably have another website when this goes out, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
that's the website, that's the mothership that
Yeah.
everything is on.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes, and I'll make
Awesome.
sure that the .co is in there. So,
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you.
well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time today and sharing your story. It's to me, it made my day. It was uplifting. It's inspiring to hear, you know, rags to soon to be riches, I guess. It's just inspiring stories. There's a lot of hope out there. So thank you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. We do our best.
Yes.
To wrap things up, remember, we're looking for some enterprising business types to join our team as franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections. Our franchisees work with entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals in their area to help them become more successful through networking and the exchange of quality business referrals in a structured weekly morning meeting. This is a unique franchise opportunity, you see, because these meetings are in the morning. A successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity onto what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, these franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, they're attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. The wonderful thing is that not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections model, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business as well. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are that someone. Whatever the case, to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one we provide at the end of this program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.